We are live,
Oh,
I think, ladies
sugars.
and gentlemen.
Are we live?
Yeah. Welcome to it. I'm gonna bring
Okay,
you guys
cool.
both up. How about
Oh, I better
there we go,
close this down then.
gentlemen. Welcome to it. I think normally I get the chance to put in like a description into the go live thing because it's gonna go right. It goes right on YouTube, and it generally asks me, "Hey, how do you want to describe this video?" So I can go back afterwards and edit the YouTube channel to talk about it. But what we have today, folks, and this is the first time for our town halls. The three of us, the three founders. Andy Pringle, you know, as our CEO, Jorrit, our CTO, myself as CXO, which is Chief Experience Officer, if you don't know that lingo. Yeah, we had so much going on in the past week. Well, I guess in the past month, but certainly in the last 2 weeks and in the last week. We've done some big announcements and made some major milestone goals. We've hit them. So thought it was worthwhile to do like the three of us on together. We'll probably do it again. I would think before the end of the year is kind of like a, hey, here's what we've accomplished in the first year, back up and operational with the focus on DePIN. So this won't be the only time you'll see the three of us together, but it's the first time, anyways, you've seen the three of us all on one call. I've done individual town halls with each of these guys, right? So a lot to cover. We want to, again, we're going to, the order of operation will be, we'll talk about our roadmap and where we are, some new exciting goals we set for ourselves and how we're proceeding on those. We'll talk about a lot about the peaq announcement because that's been a major thing for us. It didn't come without a lot of research first. And again, we've known the peaq guys for, gosh, almost 6 months at this point. I met them back in Austin, that was at the very beginning of it. And we have a lot of synergies, although I hate using that word because it gets overused, but a lot of synergies with the way we were viewing the DePIN space and the crypto space and what this technology will bring to the world. So we just further cemented it, and there's a lot to talk about there because we've taken some big steps together with them. And then we'll talk about how we see our future. I think there are probably going to be some new people tuning in who just recently got acquainted with YOM, and they're acquainted through the peaq campaign that they've helped us bring in a lot of. We'll talk about the advancements we've made in our social media and things. But we'll do that again. We'll do a deeper dive into exactly what are we aiming for. What's the road look like for YOM ahead. But that was a lot, and I'm just getting over walking pneumonia, as these guys know. So if I start going to a coughing fit, I'll mute myself. But Andy, you want to say hello first, then we'll throw it to Jorrit to say hello to everybody.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I mean, most people probably know me. You'll see me on various AMAs and stuff like that and running around. But obviously, I'm CEO, mainly commercial and business side. So running businesses and such like for 25 years, and been in crypto since 2018, and then more actively in crypto since 2021 in the space. So that's me.
Jorrit, take it. Oh, you're muted, Jorrit. Did I mute you? No, I didn't do it.
Am I a bit laggy, or is it all right?
You were for a quick second, but you're okay now too. I wonder. I'm trying to learn these controls over here.
This should now work.
There you go. Yep, you're good.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is
Say hello, Jorrit.
system. Okay, I'm Jorrit. I'm CTO at YOM, and founded it several years ago. Back then we did metaverse. Now we do DePIN. Actually, DePIN for metaverse and gaming. So it ties right in. My background is in development, software engineering, a lot of project management, did growth hacking campaigns with a technical marketing team. I got into crypto while I was working at peaq Capital, which is a leading traditional venture capital firm in the Netherlands. And then I saw one of the startups presenting, and after the startup presented, it was a Web3 startup. I decided not to purchase anything from the startup, but instead buy Bitcoin. So that was my entrance, and that was in 2016. So after I invested some money, it was my first time really investing something, just skyrocketed immediately. I was like, okay, I'm brilliant, but yeah, yeah. So that's me.
Yeah, I didn't introduce myself to people who might not have seen any of these town halls before, but my background is in gaming. I've been doing video games since 2000, so 24 years. Started off as an artist and animator, but also about 7 years in, went into project management of production. I was a producer for many years, and then ran departments, ran studios. And I worked at Oculus for a time. I worked at EA for a time. So I've been and did console games on GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, and then a lot of tablet games. And actually, the number of VR titles I have, I never really counted, but I'm going to estimate over a dozen. All right, so let's talk about the roadmap. So where we are now is we've got two big goals, right? We've got we ran a test where we had a node running in Amsterdam. And we have a sample game that a partner project made for us. It's a third-person shooter. And while the tech team was kind of going back and forth and testing it, in Amsterdam from a home to the Amsterdam office and making sure that it ran, I snuck in and tested it from the U.S. and it worked. And Europe was like, it's not supposed to. It did with a lag from the United States to Amsterdam. Me on the website, me and my computer in the States off of a node running in Amsterdam, which is
very high performance, low latency, and even better than the centralized equivalent in Amazon. So that was a surprise. So it was like 10 times cheaper. Well, more than that because we're running it ourselves. And it performed better. So that was a really exciting moment.
And then, not to be outdone, our developer in the Philippines decided he would hit it as well, and he was able to play it from the Philippines all the way over to Amsterdam. Which again, not everyone on his team was able to do it, but the one guy was able to. So, So, anyways, that's not how the whole network will work. Eventually, when the DePIN set up, I will hit nodes in the States, and people in Amsterdam will be running people in Europe. But it just goes to show it's not your next door neighbor. Go ahead, Andy.
No, and I was going to say on that point, when we were looking at building the network out and how big it would cover, you were talking about states. Now, if you imagine, obviously, the ability to be able to do transatlantic, is an extreme version. Obviously, we'd never go to that. But you're now looking at between countries within Europe. So the ability to scale fast and cover fast is getting, is far better than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And so why does this work now where previous attempts at doing cloud gaming solutions didn't work? Well, you got better compression and better codecs. You've got better infrastructure, better fiber optic lines and better transmission on 5G.
Yeah.
So
fewer firewalls to bypass, better protocols, all of that combined. Yeah, that's indeed the difference. Yeah.
So there are still places who are going to do cloud gaming through a central server, and they're going to struggle still because of all the firewalls to bypass and all the other things that are going to block them. But this peer-to-peer connection that we've set up was our first test, and it just seemed to outperform. So what happens next? Next step for us is to get up to 50 of these nodes, these units that we're running in the one we're running in Amsterdam, get them in the hands of people who have got the equipment to be our testers. And so we have a sign up now, and I'll include the link in the description of this, and you can find it on yom.oo. But signing up, people looking for 50 people around the world who will act as a tester for us. They'll get paid for it. We're going to be using their computer for the times that they can make it available to us. But we're going to build out this network. We've got 2 games lined up to get on this test project. And we hope to get these things up by the end of December. Why don't we expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, distribution. So with the tech team, there's some final things. There are always some final things. So this is the last sprint, and we're nearing completion. So we're building also a system so we can do dynamic updating also remotely to different parts of the world. Now, the question is, I think, Jeff, is which regions will we be targeting? I think that's still up to debate because we have those 2 projects that both have different regions that they're targeting, right? So that's still, yeah.
I actually don't. So Andy, you're speaking tomorrow to K4 Rally, and it's a question you can ask Frank. Like, I don't think I ever had the discussion of where is he really targeting this test. I mean, obviously, his full game they want to go worldwide, but Blackmouth, who you're also friendly with, Andy, we're happy to say, okay, can you just concentrate in these 2 regions? And it was Southeast Asia and South America, which was not part of our original plan, but we're happy to adjust if that's really where they want to target this test of their game. But you want to talk, Andy, at all about Blackmouth and K4?
Yeah, I mean, K4 Rally, obviously, massive sponsorship by Pirelli and big big Web 2 businesses. Domination, I played that and first met the guys in Valencia, and it's a really cool game, but they're really good guys, and if you're not following it, you should do. But the game feels like something that's gonna go pretty viral. And then when you look at the locations they're looking at, obviously the Domination guys are Spanish and they're looking at South America. If you're looking at who they would be targeting, it's obviously the end gamers, which is the people who are able to play the game on a mobile phone as opposed to playing it on a peak gaming PC that's $1,000. And again, that's with Southeast Asia, lots of gamers, lots of people playing on mobile phones, attracting that kind of side of it. Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the big reason, we have some numbers that we came up with that we've discovered, right? The growth rate, the compound annual growth rate for cloud gaming, which is, the ability to play off of any device, mobile device or a computer, because you've got internet access and you're basically playing through the internet. That segment of the gaming market is expected to grow, like I said, 46% over the next 5 years. It's the biggest growth. It's the biggest growth sector. And it's not easy for me to say with the head cold. In all of the gaming industry, right? It's a part that's going to expand the most. Part of that is to do again with the better infrastructure. Part of it is to reach more and more gamers, right? And more people are playing on their mobile phones than ever before, but they can't yet play high-end AAA quality games built in Unreal because Unreal's not made to stream directly in most places. So that's a big target for us. And again, in Asia and many parts of the world, gaming is really about playing on your phone, right? Because either your commute's there or just more access to those kinds of things. So this is a big growth area for us. And that's why we're such a big play. You want to say something? I can see.
No, yeah, you can always see that with me, right?
Well, I see that in everybody.
I'm actually holding 2 sample discs that we received. So we received about 20 sample discs from our distribution partners. So we're now basically installing the OEMs on top of them. So they will act as plug and play as possible already from the start. Now there is a thing called UPnP. It's a technical term that basically makes sure that the routing automatically is done correctly. Well, that's a script that's actually doing the work. But the question is, okay, are we going to include that in this release or not? Right? That's the current level of detail we're talking about. So we're pretty far ahead because we know that the streaming is possible. We know that it works with an RTX 2060 RTX card and up. So the only thing that is really remaining is like the logistics of it, right? So it's getting the images on top and then basically distributing them all over the world, and then we can start deploying some content. And then people, because there have been also people in the community that are saying, okay, all of these promises and empty things, and we are not seeing the product yet. Well, those people will be surprised in Q1, right? Because that's the moment when the network really goes live and we can start sharing some public links. We're already doing that, but only privately because of the limited amount of nodes that are now hosted on the network. So if we now share a game with the community, most of the people will just be put in a queue, and the others will have a lot of lag when entering. So that's why we're not doing that at the moment.
And interestingly, we found out just how bad the lag is for GeForce Now. Apparently there's like an hour-long waits to get on the game on a busy Friday night. They've got people queued up. The central server model doesn't scale the way that a decentralized model will, right? Yeah. So that's that's next session. And I would say again, if people who are concerned about, well, you haven't shown anything yet. Well, you do have to walk before you run, right? We have to get a single node, then we have to have a test to make sure that it would be really bad of us to ship out 1,000 nodes if we've never actually tested what happens when you have 50 of them out and live at the same time. So that's the next step. And that test, it could go 2 months, it could go 6 months. I think it probably won't go 6 months. I think it'll probably be somewhere in the area of like 2 to 3 months. They would have that up and running, right?
Yeah, in actuality, like a year ago, we had several streams also up and running, and you can see that in our YouTube video with lots of people participating. It was on our homepage. So yeah, we've proven that model, right? So the front end part where people can, like studios can actually deploy content on the network. Now, the reason we turned that off is because these streams were running still on like centralized servers, right? So there's no point on showing these streams because that's not the point of the network. The point of the network is that it's running on people's consumer hardware and that they are actually getting paid for the work that they deliver.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So we talked about that's the one. That's the immediate goal, and that's putting 50 of these nodes in the hands of people who would like to be testers. And again, the sign up sheet for that is on the website. And then the other sign up that's on the website, that one I know is www.yom.oo/nodemint. That's the allow list, right? We're still collecting names, people who want to purchase one of these first 10,000 nodes, and the first 1,000 I think are going to be even more special in that we'll have a discount for those first 1,000. All these first 10,000 are going to be awarded 300,000 of our reputation points, which is important to determine which node gets what, how much work. So this first 10,000 nodes, it's a limited set, but it's got the highest rewards. We won't ever give out that much YRX, or reputation coins from right out of the gate. But the first 1,000 is the important part. So that's the next step. And I'm just going to encourage anybody who considers, should I or shouldn't I run a node? A lot of people who are going to be tuning into this, I expect, understand the DePIN narrative and how powerful it is. The idea that people will be earning passive income from the equipment they own. If they're gamers and they've got a gaming rig and they go to bed at night and sleep, which not every gamer does, but some do. This is a way that they can use their rig to earn the money to get upgrades to their system, when they're not using their gaming rig. Or we've heard a lot now from people who have a second gaming rig because they've upgraded, and the second gaming rig just sits idle. So he put that on our network, earn themselves some money, kind of thing. Anyways, that's the second goal that we're into now, and we've got some numbers. We've had massive jumps recently in our socials because we've teamed. We made the peaq announcement. Part of that announcement was getting involved in their Get Real campaign, which has been super helpful to us already. It's exploded that allow list, and I say that only selling 1,000 in this first tranche, and I think we're up to like 700 names at this point, so it's filling up very rapidly. But we've added 15,000 people to our Twitter followers, 4,000 in our Telegram group. I don't have numbers for our Discord, how many people we've added there, but it's been substantial too. This has been really good for us. So let's talk a little bit about peaq and how we found them and why we are so excited about being a part of their ecosystem. Jorrit, I guess I'll let you start.
Yeah. So the peaq discussion is a very big discussion. There are a lot of elements around it. So before we go into peaq, let's talk about omni-chain first, right? So there are other parties in the space also doing that. I think the entire crypto industry is moving towards it. It's called omni-chain, and omni-chain means basically that your DePIN token or your project token is no longer bound to a single blockchain, right? We're still on Solana, and that's entirely fine because Solana is the most liquid blockchain in the ecosystem. But we are moving towards layer 0, and I think we're moving faster than most people expect. But what does that mean? What does omni-chain mean? What does layer 0 mean? Effectively, it means that you can easily bridge between protocols, right? So any token that is on the layer 0 protocol can be used in liquidity pools on Solana, but it can also be used on Uniswap. It can also be used on Arbitrum. It can be used basically everywhere, right? So that is for sure, that's going to be the future. Still waiting, of course, for Sui to be adopted here because Sui is gaining popularity, and for developers, it's really nice to work with. Now, we decided to opt because when you do a layer 0, you have to mint again. You have to mint on a new chain, and we decided to mint on the peaq ecosystem. And the reason for that is because we really like the guys there. We are very much aligned with their vision. There's, as Jeff also said, there's a lot of synergies there. He didn't like the word, but it's definitely there. And the peaq team is going to really help us accelerate in the space. They're going to help us out with the node sale. They're going to add liquidity to the project. They're going to push us on all of their channels. yeah, so it's like the perfect relationship made in heaven, so to say. Yeah, so more about the details of the token, right? It's going to be just a one-on-one value swap. So if you own, let's say, 1% of all YOM tokens in the ecosystem, and I'd say that is a possibility at the current price. If you buy in fast, then you would basically have 1% of the YOM token in the new version of YOM, right? But then that new version is omni-chain. We are going to add a lot more tokens to the ecosystem in total. So we're moving from 300 million to 10 billion. And the reason we're doing that, it's also like much more easier with math, right? So 300 million is like a weird number. Going to 10 billion, it's like, okay, then you know exactly, it's like a nicely round number. So that's what we're doing. There will be no dilution, right? So any token that you have now basically goes times 33. So for every token that you bridge over, you have 33 more tokens. First of all, in the peaq ecosystem, we'll be adding liquidity together with the guys from peaq. And then from there, we'll see what happens and we move over liquidity to other platforms, right? So I think that's one part. The other aspect is more technical. It's on the RBAC framework that peaq has developed of time. It's like a specific type of access management and permission management for like managing fleets of devices, which is in particular very useful for us because there may be like big mining farms that have a fleet of hardware. And how do you easily remote control that entire fleet of devices? Now, all of that can be done on Solana ecosystem. I know it's just a lot easier on peaq, and there's going to be a lot of additional services and support specifically for DePIN, right? Whereas Solana is, as they say themselves, a token for payment. So that is really exciting. Especially from a technical perspective, but also I would say from an omni-chain perspective. So I guess that summarizes. And any suggestions from you guys?
Well,
I mean,
Andy, you want to talk about we met with Leo and those guys in Singapore?
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I mean, the thing I mean, for a start, we met the CEO in April, and we're just, everybody's all on the same page, which was the first bit. But that on its own, when you start thinking about, we are a DePIN project, and to have such, specialized people in the DePIN space where we have access to the CEO, the head of investments, the head of, projects, we can deal with them really quickly. You get straight through. You don't get kind of blocked going through, and you've got to deal with 15 different people as we have with other groups. It's a different game. And then if you think about, the network effect and how knowledge, creates knowledge, you've got 50 or 60 DePIN projects all in together, all with the same vision and values, all with the same kind of ideas. You're bouncing off people. Whereas, any of these other chains, we spoke to Sui, as Jorrit said, we spoke to Polygon, they're good guys, nice people. And obviously we've been dealing with Solana. But when you've got such diversity and you end up in a real niche where you are all learning the same thing, this is only going to go in one direction. It's going to be accelerated learning across all of us, from that side. So I'm really positive about it. And I think everyone else is on the team.
Yeah, and I think, sorry. Yeah, I think it also transitions into the next topic, right? So talking about real world value, because that's where peaq is concentrating all of their efforts and energy at. But sorry, Jeff.
So my first conversation with Martin and those guys over at peaq was over a Texas barbecue lunch when I went to Austin for the for Consensus. And as I sized him up and he sized me up, and we were talking about like what DePIN really means for people in the future. I had a lot. It was again similar to the first time that you and I spoke about why money is broken and how do you fix it. It was a very kind of sinking of the minds. Well, this week was really the first time that I got to sit in on Jorrit and Martin having their first long conversation about not just the technology, not just the business side of things, but the philosophy behind what Web3 is supposed to do for the future and what DePIN does inside of that Web3 future. And I sat quietly and just smiled most of the time because, as I expected, the two of them got along extremely well. And again, it's important to enjoy the people that you're working with. So that's where I guess I'm going to start.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely, I can completely, like, I would say even better, right? So if you look at, so we've also had, by the way, great conversations with the Solana team.
Sure.
And it's very interesting to talk with all of these thought leaders in the industry, in the space, their philosophies on things, and I would say Solana is also doing a very good job still, even though they go for a different angle. They go for the open ecosystem, right, approach, where you have basically everybody building, and then they're not choosing any side, right? So I like that as a libertarian. I like that philosophy, but what it does in the end, so if you look at it from a game theoretic perspective, if you do that, then in the end, of course, the projects that put the most money in the marketing and are the most degenerate and the most meaningful, so to say, they will take up a very strong lead in the space, right? So, and it kind of damages also the findability of the other projects that are more infrastructure and technology oriented, especially the smaller ones that haven't had the liquidity or the opportunity yet to prove themselves in the market. So that is a discussion we had with the Solana team, and we had a similar discussion also with the peaq team. And then we decided, okay, like the most rational choice for us is to switch mostly to the peaq community, because that's where the current values align with most. And again, as Andy also kind of like said, it's better to be a bigger fish in a slightly smaller pool than a shrimp in an ocean, right? So yeah, I think it only makes sense what we decided for, and of course you can call out whether it's bullish or not, and look at the peak price and say, oh yeah, it's down. Look at the YOM price, oh no, it's down, so it's going to zero. Yeah, well, they've said that many times about Bitcoin, and Bitcoin went from 20 cents to $1, $1.20, and then it made a crash from $1.20 to it was really low. I think it was 30 cents, something like that. And then people thought, okay, well, Bitcoin is done for. Well, if you had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin at 30 cents, yeah, nobody nowadays would say no to it. But looking back, looking at the emotions that played in that wave, then a lot of people would actually opt out of Bitcoin. Were they right? Yes, they were right in a way.
So we're skirting alongside of the question that Talon asked, and again, we're probably going to answer it less directly because of certain laws that prevent us from saying certain things. He's asking, why is everything going up, but YOM is regularly going down, and there are certain regulations that prevent us and from speaking too much about the price of our token, because again, it can sound like we're anyways, it's just the laws don't let you do that, especially here in the States where we're so poorly, our regulations are so all over the place. But we have had people sell off, and this is the market right now is really should be led by Bitcoin, which is leading the way. Eventually, it'll go to altcoins, and eventually it'll go to small micro coins. Right. So I mean, that's how the markets work. But I got involved in trading. I guess maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but not knowing what I was doing, I lost my shirt during we went up to the peak for Bitcoin, and then I wrote it all the way right back down again. And then I started looking for ways to understand how do people actually who are reading the charts well, how do they do it? Surprised to find out so much of it is related to people's emotions, right? The whole cycle is an emotional cycle because retail investors are very emotional. And they get attracted by the bright shiny, and they go chasing after it. But generally, you come in after it's already risen. You watch this big green canyon. You're like, I got to get into that, and you got in when all the institutional investors have decided to top it out, sell it off to you, retail investors, and they leave, and you're left holding the bag. And that's how the whole cycle works. It was a fascinating study when I came to find out, that's what I was doing. I was a guy chasing the green candles when really I should have more of a mind of an investor, of an institutional investor who's like, sell off to those guys who are emotional.
Anyways. Especially the case, I would say, with the memes that are like these are roller coasters from the start, right? So they focus on the TG, or many of them. You can pick which funny frog or dog you opt for, right? So it's really nice. There's a community, there's a lot of excitement, but usually it's it's a zero-sum game. Well, in fact, the house wins, right? So there's a lot done. So all of the money is put into marketing, it's put into exchanges, right? So the total value of that ecosystem is actually, if you put money in it, like on average, you will lose. It's the same as casino, and people, it's fine to do that. It's fine to go gambling. I'm not saying don't gamble, but do realize it's gambling. If you want to do proper investing, you invest in proper real world productive utility, right? And that is the mindset that has been a bit lost in the space. And I can also relate why, because it has, it's really difficult, I think, for serious projects, with all of the regulations that's still out there, that kind of prevent you from really taking a stance, a grounded stance somewhere in space, and say, okay, hey, we're doing this, we're security. You cannot do that, right? So, and effectively, most tokens are securities. They do some kind of payout or promise in the future, right? You're not supposed to talk about that, but that's the reality. Now, that's why DePINs, in a way, because the token is bound to the network rather than the performance of some entity. It's computers doing the work. Now, that's basically a very smart way around that entire structure, and that's why DePINs are fundamental value that actually work within the current regulatory framework. Now, we all hope this will change. We hope that securities, that with Trump, that of course cryptos and securities are going to get this very interesting marriage together, but that won't happen, unfortunately, on the short term. So this market will be reigned by memes and by DePIN. That's the expectation, and then mostly by memes, because they work on the marketing and they have the attention economy there, right? But it's a zero-sum game, so up to you.
You want to jump in on this? I know that you're sitting there shifting your seat.
Yeah, well, no. I'm always shifting. My ADHD kicks in. Do you know what I mean? So, but no, I'm with you. I think that one of the things I find slightly disappointing about the crypto space is it's such a great opportunity to give real value to individuals as opposed to massive corporates and massive organizations. Yet we do sometimes look at this very short term. And I think since DePINs have come along, I think DePIN is such a great product line and such a great niche to be involved in that, I see no negatives at all here. I mean, I think, again, the question that Talent put in here about price going down, obviously we can't comment on price at all. But I think when people really start looking at what they're getting from a product, are they getting, and again, Jorrit nailed it. Are they getting a really pretty picture and an NFT, or are they getting a good community? And then again, that has real value. When you look at what we get from DePIN, it takes longer to get there, but it will get there. I can't see any other way.
It's not a zero-sum game,
with
right?
GPU.
Yeah. So you have any DePIN is a marketplace. So you have buyers that basically pay with fiat, and there's money flowing into the ecosystem. Right, that's crucial. That's crucial for any token to flourish.
Well,
and if you don't have it,
so we should talk about this.
As long as the DePIN actually has demand at the front end and supply.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? So that is the external, the fiat money flowing in on the front end.
And we're fortunate to be part of this big, again, the cloud gaming market expanding as much as it is. We know demand is there. I mean, people are, like we said before, we're oversubscribed right now. We have to push projects away for a little bit. But the one thing that we wanted to talk about here was the massive demand that GPU cycle itself becomes a commodity, right? And as we get more and more demand for GPU cycles, the central server model is going to be where every AI project who needs to grab in GPU cycles, they're going to be going there and purchasing as much GPU as they can from these central servers. It's optimized when it's in a central server. They can pool together, which means cloud gaming has to compete against AI projects to get GPU cycles out of those central servers. So right now it's already more expensive we're like 10 times cheaper than to go to an Amazon server. And again, we run faster.
More than that even. So if you look at services, so AWS, then you get raw hardware. You still have to build the entire solution on top of it. And then it's more expensive, right? But if you look at the actual competitors, the services like Arkware that have an even overhead on top, it's $6 an hour per user. $6 an hour per user.
Insane.
We do it for 7 cents. Now that's obvious. To
the whole point was that the GPU cycles at central servers is just getting more and more expensive. It's going to even make it harder and harder for games to host on a central server. And again, it doesn't work just architecturally. Technology wise, it's just not the fastest solution. So we've got all kinds of advantages. I see your question, Bodwin. We'll get to it. Absolutely. But so again, what we're offering, and then there are other benefits too that kind of pop into our heads as we spoke about the central server and versus decentralized server. So why, hitting real quick, why the central server is so expensive? Obviously, you've got more competition. You've got a big building you've got to build. And Andy, what was the number of? It was like 11. I heard 3, and then I heard 11 times more data centers that have to be built.
But that's specifically for AI. It was Michael Dell, I believe, said it was like 100 times the amount of data centers are going to be required over the next 15 years.
Right.
Now, if you imagine that, right? Even if you look at this from, I don't know what the costing. I think costings are, it obviously depends how big the data center is, because generally you can't use a building that's already been built. You've got to build it from scratch because of the air conditioning. Even down to the pollution. It's like the equivalent that we're building at the moment is the same pollution that comes out of Italy for the builds for GPUs that are going. And then if you imagine 100 times more, I mean the costing
100 Italies in terms of carbon.
100 Italies, yeah.
That's crazy.
It's madness. Yeah.
It's complete madness. And I would say, so why is going for a decentralized approach? Because it's still computers running, right? So the idea, in a massive data center, the heat is actually considered a waste product, right? But in your home, in the winter, it's not a waste product, right? So you save on electricity costs that would otherwise warm your house, right? Now, is one machine going to warm your entire house? Of course not, but it's going to reduce the cost.
Definitely. Do you remember that guy we met from? Yeah, there was T-Mobile. Basically, were running gaming rigs, weren't they, in the basement of? We met the T-Mobile guy, and they were running that, and they were running a whole office block on the rigs downstairs. Now, the interesting thing I was thinking about this is, as we now have got a wider kind of width for where we can actually deliver gaming to, as opposed to a smaller space, the way I see this is going to be hubs of buildings where companies, they might be gaming companies, they might be companies that, architects that use high-end gaming cards, they're going to put it in, they're going to have this running, and they're going to heat the and houses around them or whatever.
Developing countries, right? So we're targeting both the people who don't have a gaming machine, but also the hubs or the people that do, right? So in the developing countries, what you see everywhere, and it's basically one of the biggest opportunities right now is you have all of these internet cafes and gaming cafes that basically target their neighborhood. So during the day, what happens is a lot of people in the neighborhood, they mostly men, they come to the internet cafe, they play Web3 games, they earn a living out of the Web3 games on those gaming PCs, and they go home and then feed their family off the games that they're playing, right? But that's of course not a sustainable model again, because if you play games and then you get rewarded for effectively doing nothing, then there is no value being produced. So what we're saying, we're changing that model. So all of those internet cafes that have been set up for that Web3 craze and the gaming communities, we can basically transform them into hubs that mine, so to say, YOM tokens, and then they provide the entire ecosystem with gaming platforms on the mobile devices, right? So the people in the neighborhood who don't have the hardware, they can actually just connect automatically. They watch a few ads potentially, so that the nodes get paid, and that's it, right? So you have a thriving ecosystem, and the people don't have to move all the way to the internet cafe and forced to play games. So they can do some real work, productive work within their community instead.
Right. And the last part I didn't really touch on is the idea that with those central servers, one of the costs that they run into is the upgrade costs. Once they decide that, okay, well, now they're better equipment, we got to take a little equipment out and put new equipment in.
Right.
We diffuse all those costs because as people in their normal course decide to upgrade their gaming rig, they're upgrading our network at the same time without even knowing it. And probably they're doing it because they're earning money from streaming hours for us on the network and earning that new upgrade themselves, and then just deciding they're going to upgrade their system. The yield, if you look at our yield is in the market of all the other DePIN projects. I think we have to be one of the highest because, again, we have a much bigger market to delve into. Gaming market, if people who don't know, gaming is the highest revenue generator of all entertainment, right? We beat out music, movies, and TV combined. We have for a number of years. I say we because I've been part of gaming for such a long time. But the gaming market is just massive, right? So there, again, I like all the DePIN projects and what they're offering, the ability to measure noise pollution in a certain area, or check the bandwidth of Wi-Fi in certain areas. And there are certainly data centers and providers who want to purchase that data. But comparatively, the amount of game hours and the amount of money generated by games is just so massive, right?
Yeah. It's like an order of magnitude of 100x almost, right?
So we heard this week, hey, your numbers seem unrealistically high. We hear that from time to time, and we're like, oh yeah, I guess we could hobble it and not offer as much rewards, but it wouldn't be true. And we're kind of a group that likes to be true about things, be honest about things.
Yeah, we recently got a new colleague in, and his background is in applied mathematics. He's working on the orchestrator, and he was like looking at the words and saying, does that work out? Because that's so high. And then he made the math himself, and he looked at, okay, this is, and then he said, yeah, indeed, like if you balance that enough, then indeed that's the rewards that nodes will be getting, right? And he couldn't, he was like,
I didn't know he did that. When did he do that? Was it this week?
Yeah,
good on him. Good. I like validation like that.
So the math is sound. And this guy, he's got a background in ORTEC, right? So that's it's warehouse optimization. So he figures out what's the best possible route from X to Y, right? And how do you solve problems when there are several competing resources, so to say, for the same space? And that's exactly the type of problem that we're also building that we're also facing and building problems for with YOM, right? Because fundamentally, it's all about orchestration. So which nodes gets the most rewards? Where, right? So high demand regions, those who have built a good reputation, etc. So there's countless amount of factors that are involved in orchestrating this network, and that's our main focus.
Yeah. So a couple of questions have come in, and the questions like, how big is the team? And the alpha is a full MVP, correct? Was the question. And I hope you're recording the stream. Yeah, the stream gets fully recorded by YouTube, and it'll be there live forever. So how big is the team? Right, we're 9 developers. Am I counting that right?
Yep. Well, yeah. It's we have Guido, we have Jorn, Rohan.
I've got Nessa in that count.
Patrick.
Yeah, and then I've got Nessa and yourself and Andy and myself.
Yeah. Then we're at 9. Yeah,
a full team of 9, right? So, but so much of it, I don't know how much we want to talk about. How much we pull in from assistance from AI and everything like that. You're.
But sorry, say that again.
Well, Claude, do you want to count Claude in this equation?
Oh yeah, yeah. So this is the thing. There are people who are saying that AI is a fad and will go over, but trust me, I'm a developer. Claude and AI is like literally it's about 50xing every developer here. So effectively, we have about let's say we have about 200 developers. Let's round it down, right? So 200 developers. Hopefully that answers the question.
Who are very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
And is the alpha going to be the full MVP? Yeah, I guess we'd say that, right? It's going to have all security. It's going to have the orchestrator.
Well, it's more
gonna
than
have,
MVP. The MVP was already built a year ago. We had some streams live with the onboarding platform, but like if we really focus on the DePIN part, the Alpha network is there. I'd say that's the MVP. But yeah, the fine MVP, right? Because it's definitely not a prototype. It's actually working, and we can onboard basically our partners, our studio partners on there, and these are paid partners. So there will immediately be rewards for the node.
Yeah. And is there a way to check the percent reward? Yes. So when you go to the Node Mint site, we have a calculator there that'll give you an estimate depending on how the size of your GPU, the amount of hours that you could plan to operate. The things that it doesn't show you is your reputation, the region that you're in. If you could have a super high-powered gaming computer, really high reputation, and plan to run it 24/7, but be in Antarctica when no one's playing games, right? And that's not going to earn you anything.
But I guess Boudewijn is based in the Netherlands because of the name.
Yeah, that's your guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain of that. And generally in Europe, and definitely in Amsterdam and Netherlands, there are high power lines or like high optics, very fast lines to all parts of the world. So it's probably a very good region to be in to set up nodes. Yeah. The disadvantage is that we have a lot of Dutchies in the community competing for the Netherlands.
But again, it won't be convenient for the Netherlands. As Andy said before, you'll reach pretty much all of Europe, you would think.
Yeah.
He's saying correct. Yeah.
I think actually the Netherlands is a really nice position and very central for lots of other locations. I could see the whole of Europe now working. I mean, obviously, if you're one extreme like I am, in Spain or Portugal even, and the other in Eastern Europe, then obviously the closer you can get to those, the better. But it's not like a centralized server. The problem with Stadia, the reason it failed is because they had servers in Finland and Ireland, and obviously you've got to connect to those. If you're miles away from it, then it doesn't work. Whereas what we've got obviously is a proof of the pudding where it works on a lot larger level than Google Stadia.
I would still say, of course, like the highest performance gaming, if you're a hardcore gamer, go native always, because you still have like about a 25 milliseconds latency in there, which is it's fine for first-person shooters, and also for multiplayer sessions. What we can do is, for example, match people on the same amount of latency, so there is no unfair disadvantage, right? So we can still offer that, but the most native gameplay is, of course, on your personal computer in the lowest latency. But that's also not necessarily the product or the target audience we're targeting. So yeah, I would say like beyond the hardcore first-person shooters, think about experiences that are AI avatars that you can talk to, right? So a meta-human, super realistic, that has like all of the lip sync, everything that's on your Telegram, and you can talk with her or him, and then she would suggest some activities to do, and you can actually go out with her. So it's like your personal companion, and it's not slowing down your mobile device. It's not draining your battery, right? So this is beyond games, of course, and we're not going to actively target that because we know that the gaming market by itself is already big enough. But these are like opportunities for other businesses to build on top of the YOM ecosystem. Just like, and that's brings me to another topic, which is we're a network, right? So we plug into existing aggregators. So again, a big difference between YOM and, for example, Steam or GeForce Now is that we're not doing the front end part, right? We are actually the providers for potentially Steam, potentially Netflix. We already provide to Telegram. We're currently also discussing a possible JV with a company I can't name. Yeah, true.
But it's a very big name,
So
isn't it? I shouldn't say that anyway. I'm going to shush.
But the point is that we are not building the aggregator, right? We're not going to list the games. That's other companies building on top of YOM rather than us, right? So
we've said
to mention
go ahead,
actually,
Andy.
I heard a really good one. There's a new AI chatbot, and it's basically all based on OpenAI. I think it's called HeyGen, so it's HEYGEN, and basically it's an avatar where you talk to the avatar. So it's taking the ChatGPT and moving it into a personalized kind of scenario. And there was a guy who I know quite well who was like, "This is amazing." He's like, you end up having a conversation with them. You know, it's a full, Chat GPT in that space.
Yeah.
But again, it's very exciting.
We don't also want to overpromise, right? So
tone it down.
Right. So tone it down, right? So a lot
but we did want to talk a little bit about what makes us different from, again, there are other players in the space who talk about what they're building. And again, the two differentiators, when we talk to investors and other people, the reason why we're different from some of the other players in the space is there's two main differences. There's a tech difference and a business plan difference. You just started talking about the business plan difference. We're not trying to funnel players through a pinch point like a platform. We're instead saying, have your 3D experience on any URL, on any platform, including Telegram, which we've already accomplished, or Chromecast to your living room TV. Basically, we want access to video games to anybody who just reaches the internet on any device, as opposed to saying, "Well, buy a subscription to this service and then subscribe." Now, does it work for every game? Not really, but I think Fortnite has proved that you can make a free-to-play game be massively successful by selling the random vanity items and make people happy to have, and they get licensing deals and those kinds of things. So we expect a lot of that to happen. And then the tech difference. There was a
stat, wasn't there, by the way, that came out that something like 78% of revenue last year was from free-to-play gaming. People not buying games anymore, and basically.
And it used to be the scourge of the industry. Everybody was like, "Don't every free-to-play game is going to." It just happens to be a model that people get behind and like, and actually turns out to be very successful. And then the tech difference, right? The tech difference is, again, we're decentralizing the most important part for a cloud game system to work, and that is the video stream. Our orchestrator, the thing that kind of looks it over and says, okay, well, that node needs to run that experience for that person. That can be centralized because, again, you want kind of the head of the system to be able to watch and look in every direction.
Well, it could be decentralized, right, in terms of architecture, but it doesn't solve a big problem. It's just, we like it decentralized, right? That's not an argument. The argument should always be, is it going to improve some efficiency goal? Is it going to make the product better? Is it going to make the user experience better, right? And sorry for intervening, but that is the main goal. We could do it decentralized.
Right. But we see that the other projects are doing, which is probably the easier thing to do, right? They do the video stream still from a central server, so they don't have to figure out all the hard solutions that we had to figure out to get decentralized on that part. But again, then they're going to run into high costs, and they're going to have places in the world they can't reach. Right, it doesn't scale.
Exactly.
We got one more question, and then we could start to wrap this up because we're getting close to the hour. From Bodwin, how many companies are already building for YOM? Well, how many have in the past, and then how many are building for future stuff? Then we've been kind of tamping back people to say, let's get the network up and running first. We don't want to sell people the service that isn't operational yet, because it ends up being a lot of overhead for us to manage them as they're knocking on the door to try to get in. But we've got 5 projects I think are currently actively building. Am I counting that right?
Yeah, 5. We have done already quite some projects. In fact, when we started out, we did TEDx, Blacksmith Client, Rathenau Institute, a lot of projects, and we just deployed them on centralized servers. And then we decided, okay, let's hold all of that back, because if the infrastructure is a chicken and egg problem, right? Infrastructure is not live, you cannot deploy your studios. And also, if we now do the outreach, and we have done that, right? So we have 25 studios signed, and we have some more building. Even companies that haven't signed yet, they are building.
I think it's 30 studios signed, by the way.
Yeah, 31. But the problem is that if the network is not live, you lose momentum, right? So there is no point in us now doing even more outreach to the studios. We already know that they're going to do it. So we can only basically support a handful, a couple of the studios first anyway. It's the test network.
Yeah, yeah, it's overhead to help manage them and get them along. So at the point that we are up and running and we start getting those, all the games start going live, it's a matter of staffing up so we have enough support members on our team to support all the projects that we bring in board. And the guy that we have doing it now, who's, we got him like kind of making sure that whatever steps he's using, he's replicating, making it easier in our documentation so he doesn't have to do it. Next time around, and maybe eventually we'll get an AI bot to help these projects.
Yeah, the problem is actually that we are re-architecting the plugin, so it completely works, but we want a more general version of the plugin that basically works with all possible types of games, right? Because for now we really oriented towards a first person, third person, and all of that, right? So it's more difficult if you, let's say, have a top-down game to get it to work. It can still be done. So we're now re-architecting it from the ground up. So we're using sub-modules, so you can basically very easily import the functions from the sub-module, and then talk with the network, perform some activities there. There's heartbeat there, so we're re-architecting that in the meantime. So the unfortunate part of this, because this sounds very good, it is good, but the unfortunate part is that I have to start updating all of our documentation again on the docs page, because it's going to be completely different. And I spent so much time doing that, even with ChatGPT, because most of it is in blueprints, right? So you cannot, which is like high level code, so you cannot just copy paste that, right? So it's visual. But I'll be happy doing that again.
Andy, what have we not touched on today that we should talk more about to the community? We've got a few minutes left.
I don't know. We've been through the move to peaq, the reason for it, the new token. We've done the reason YOM exists, and where we are. I think just to emphasize on that bit as well, Jorrit nailed it when he said, "Is this an MVP?" It's not. We're pretty much done. We need to get live to show that it works externally.
It's still off the network, right? So there's going to be testing, but it's an MVP. So define MVP, right? So MVP, if that means it's a product that you can you can sell. It's a minimum sellable product. Then a viable product. What does viable mean? Does it mean it's viable for a user, or is it viable for somebody paying for it? Right. So that is usually
I say both.
Yeah.
The minimum. Both.
I think. I think we're in a really strong position from a technical perspective. I'm really happy, and I know it feels like everything's coming along. I mean, even down to the point of the Chromecast that happened last week. The fact that we can cast it onto a TV, the fact that we can run stuff in Telegram, all this is groundbreaking. Other people can't do this. So again, I'm really excited.
Yeah, so this is a good highlight, because we talk mostly about immersive experience. So in terms of games, so Domination is building on top of YOM Battle Royale game, right? So it's similar to, what was it? I don't want to make mistakes. So
Fortnite, yeah.
What's the most popular Battle Royale? I forgot.
Yeah, Fortnite.
Fortnite. Yeah, there we go. Fortnite. That's why I forget that. But it's similar to that, but then more fun.
Yeah. I love the look of it too. We did have one more question, and it sounds like he's promising this is the last question. You're talking about AI and VR games. So
no, that's the one I answered, right? So no games like Gears of War, so it's like Battle Royale.
Oh no, I mean but we would expect.
By the way, guys, I'm going to have to drop now because I've got a BBC call to go on. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Well, we got to go anyways, but thanks, Andy. We'll
all right. See you later, guys. Take care. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Have a great weekend.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
But yeah, we should expect games like Gears of War or Ragnarok. I mean,
we haven't. Yeah, I mean, realistically, like Gears of War before they are going to, so they first want to see, of course, the network going live, right? We're talking about top tier studios. They're not just going to move away from Steam to YOM. However, they could, as part of a marketing campaign, deploy, let's say, mini game of Gears of War on YOM initially. So to kind of like
Simple
offset the
level,
risk.
right?
And then they will see that on YOM they will get a lot more users in than on Steam. We are already seeing that with Marcy's versus Roughnecks. We have way more users, even though it's a private link. We have way more users than the average game that gets deployed to Steam, which is...
Is it getting passed around? I didn't ever ask you that.
What?
Is that link getting passed around when we've asked investors to please don't pass this around? They're
Yeah,
passing it
no,
around.
but we
anyways.
pass it around, and then people just start playing it, and it's again a new number coming in, right? So if you look at most games deployed to Steam, they have like 10 players per month.
Yeah, I got to get that in an article out. I keep on talking about this article where I lay out like what our goal is there, but I haven't got it out yet. All right. Well, listen, it's been a blast again. Thanks everybody for attending. A little house cleaning. Next week is Thanksgiving Day holiday. At this time, I will be very, very stuffed full of food that I probably can't digest in a single day. So there won't be any town hall next week to handle the American holiday. But back the week after that, and we'll announce who the partner's going to be at that time. So I think that's everything.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you, Jeff, for hosting this.
I'm having a blast doing these.
Yeah, you're so well made for doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah. In my retirement, maybe I'll just open up my own podcast again.
Yeah, you should just be a podcaster, an influencer.
It's the questions I want to ask some people around the world, and that they'll sit down with me.
I also don't want to boost your ego because it's already pretty high. So.
Yeah, it's true. All right, brother.